We may not win today, gentlemen, but we'll have a good time.
Hey everybody, I'm Ronnie and this is Rob.
Welcome back to my Couch to 5K journey. Today I'm going to paint my second mini.
I'm going to show Rob a little bit about base coating and doing a little bit of blending, and we're going to cover doing a wash and a dry brush, so some beginning techniques to kind of get him going. Alright, today we're going to paint another wizard type to get a little better at some techniques, and we'll kind of go over a couple of things that are just kind of basic painting kind of things I think that will help you along, get
All
you
the
started.
stuff I don't know.
Everything you don't know, yeah. And then also some other things that hopefully address maybe like more things particular to you, some of the color, kind of colorblind, color choosing issues. And then last time you said like your hand, you kind of had a hard time, you were getting a little crampy.
Yeah, I need to do some workouts or something.
No, you're good. I've never used one of these myself, but I know about them, so I got one of these. They can be a block of wood. I've seen people just put putty tacked to like a block of wood, but I thought this was kind of neat, and I just curious anyway. So we'll try this out. It's a hobby holder, I think. You can stick the mini on there, and then you can hold it if you need to get to something upside down. You can turn this.
Ah, it's this little holder.
You can
take
the thing off. Yeah. So I'm hoping that'll feel a little more ergonomic on your hand.
That's genius.
Yeah, and I don't have too much of trouble with this myself. Maybe this is a bad habit. I feel like a pretty experienced painter now, but I always get away with just handling them on the base. And I know if you handle them too much, you can kind of rub off some of the paint like while you're painting. I know some people really like this for that. Yeah, guilty as charged. But I don't know. This would be kind of cool to see. And it takes bottle caps. So these are you drink a 20 ounce.
That's cool.
Let's do this. We're going to look at a few kind of quick things just about the brush, and rule number 1, thinning your paint. So let's go over here. Now you can kind of see this brush. I still feel like is a pretty good brush, but there's not a tip on it right now. And there's also not enough water in this cup, so I'm going to be right back. So putting a tip on the brush is just kind of it's going to become a second nature habit. When the bristles are wet and you kind of go to dab them off, and the easiest way to do this is with a little bit of a twirl. You can kind of bring it to a point. To where now you see you've kind of got like a point, like a tip to work with. And so that's going to let you control a little bit better when you're painting, especially if you've got like a thicker brush and you can still kind of work into edges that way.
You get into that detail work.
Exactly. In the same way that you can do this with water, you're going to do it with the paint too. So when you kind of mix up a little bit of paint, I'll kind of twirl it, right there too, to get a little bit of a tip.
Okay.
Especially with as many times as you're in and out of like washing it out, getting a tip on the brush and all that, you're going to have these little droplets of water. And what the worst thing that can happen is if you leave them be and they run down the brush when you're painting, and they flood out of like runny paint on your model. So I actually like these triangular ones because I can get that flat and I just roll it 3 times, and then I know I've kind of got everything that's off there. So
gotcha.
That's just a little technique. I do it with every brush, and I try to do that when I clean them out. I try to put a tip on them and let them dry that way to help preserve the bristles. But just using it, it's going to happen a little bit over time. When you clean them, sometimes people take them all the way down and kind of scrape like at the bottom of the cup. You really are going to get a lot better. It's going to be easier on the brush, and you're going to actually get a little better cleaning by just like really quick, but in the middle of the cup. The other thing I think that is a good place to start is, you had mentioned last time when you were painting, like it felt a little gloppy, or you kind of it would be a little streaky when you just went right from the paint to it.
Yeah, a little too viscous in some areas, and then it just kind of got smeared around.
Yes. This comes as no surprise to any veteran painters, but Something that people just might not know starting out is like you think you can kind of have this paint. You really need to thin it in some way. It doesn't have to be a lot. Like even a little drop of water is going to help it run more smoothly. And one thing that I've found is there is no perfect ratio that you're going to find. You kind of need to get a sense for what kind of runniness or viscosity you need with a paint, because different pigments are thicker and thinner than others.
Really? So you just need that experience with each one.
A little bit, but I mean, as you kind of put it out onto the palette and you kind of work it around as you put a little bit of water, you'll kind of get a feel for it. But in the beginning, there's not a great way to. There's no
formula.
There's no formula for that. Yeah, but that's just something I've noticed. Like especially like real metallic paints, they seem to be a whole lot thicker on average, so I can water them down a little more. Sometimes I feel like, I think it also kind of depends on different paint brands too. Some of their colors, whatever pigments they're using, they seem to be either a little bit thicker or not. So you get to kind of see a little bit of it as you're putting a little bit of paint out on the palette, but even just a little bit of water is going to help it thin out and kind of run a little bit more smoothly on the Mini, so that you get a little smoother coverage. You're just going to have to do a couple of coats. So you don't need to get a full coat in one pass. Lay down a little bit, especially when it's thin. You kind of think it's going to take longer to dry, but especially when it's a real thin coat, it actually dries pretty quick.
It doesn't matter what medium you're painting on, like metal versus ceramic or what have you.
Not really. There's like plastic and metal minis, and either one it's going to be good to prime it. So that primer is going to kind of etch into the material and really hold, and then the paint's going to hold to that.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll pick out some colors, and I'll show you a little bit about how we'll do, how we're going to trick, like we said, we're going to kind of trick your eye when you're looking at the Mini by accentuating contrast to what you would think they would be in real life. So we'll get a darker, we'll kind of get a green, we'll get like the middle green that we kind of want to shoot for, and we'll get a shade darker and a shade brighter, and then we will kind of blend them a little bit to the recesses and highlights, and it'll give it like a three-dimensional kind of quality. Let's do this. Let's take a wet brush. I think that a little bit bigger brush would be good to do. Yep, and we'll just take a little bit of the blue and separate it. We'll try to make our a little bit darker.
So separate it, like I'm moving it over.
Get a little glob of it, just the blue, and then dump it, off there, And twirling the brush, I find it kind of gets the paint off as well. When I have it, if I scoop a little bit, then I can kind of twirl it like that. So we've got a little bit over there.
Scoop and twirl.
Scoop and twirl. And then we rinse it out, and let's do a little bit, and I think undersell the black, because black can be a really strong pigment. Just a little dab, and we'll mix it in there so we get a little darker tone. You're good.
You need to get all the paint off of there. Like how much paint should be? How thorough do you need?
The black will overpower it quite a bit. Yeah,
right.
Probably going from depending on what color you're going to, like going from the black into the white would be, it's going to be easy to end up with a gray very quickly.
Gotcha. All right.
But just
we want just a little dab.
I bet even just a little dab just at the end. Yep, and I would even maybe get some of that off and try mixing that in to the blue. Yep.
Maybe just doing one of these.
Yeah. Cool. And now dip just the tip of the brush in the water, and come back here and just kind of thin it out just a little bit. Nice. So we're going to see how that kind of just is a little smoother. Yeah. Now you have just a little bit thinned out. Let's hit it and get like a base coat of that blue. the robe section. I'll let you hit it. And if you feel like you need to get a little dip, just the tip in the water again to thin it, that's totally fine too. But
so when it comes to attacking one of these, like,
Mhm.
I mean, are there like any tips as to like what section you should start painting first? Or?
with this mini, the robe is so big. It's 90% of the mini. It feels like.
Oh yeah.
I think it makes sense to kind of block that, and it's also kind of lends itself to the. It's kind of why it chose this mini for us to paint. But generally speaking, I like to work inside out, from the deepest features to the most surface. And so what that would mean is like his face inside the robe. It would be easier to paint the face and then paint your way out, cleaning up mistakes, so that at the end you have a lot of easy access to cover up any, blips that kind of come across on other parts of the robe or something. Than it would be to paint the robe and go in and do the face. So we're maybe not quite following that rule, but this is a mini that I think lends itself pretty well to this. But generally speaking, if you're struggling with something that's maybe a little more technical, do the most recessed features first and work your way out from the mini. And also, I find like top down painting from the head to the foot seems to kind of help me. And you're at a point right now, looking at the brush, you might even want to just rinse it out completely and then kind of start anew. You might have a little bit better time, like with flow and coverage.
Oh, sure. It probably dries out and stuff, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. If it dries on the bristles, I especially kind of notice it if the paint is kind of wicked up, all the way along the brush. It starts to look that sheen is going, where it looks a little dry on the brush. Then you're not quite getting the soft bristle action that you want.
Oh yeah, that does feel better. All right, cool.
What color of dragon do you think you want to? Do you want to start pulling some colors to pick from? For you go classic green, or are you gonna go?
Yeah, a little small one like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think yellow would look pretty good.
Yellow would be good. I was to say yellow, red too, actually, but
Red.
yellow would be nice. Yeah, yellow would be good. So we're gonna go with the yellow for the dragon. Yellow for the dragon. We're gonna go with something that's. This is boy, to me, this kind of really rides the line of like a very beginner technique and a little bit intermediate technique, because I think there is a little bit of something to it. It really helps to know about like the properties of the paints and that kind of stuff. But I think that we'll do a little bit of a wash to get some contrast on this dragon, and then you'll have done two different techniques to get some shadows and highlights on the same mini, and you kind of compare them and see. So
how does a wash compare to a paint?
A wash is a very runny paint that's pigmented a little differently, and the whole purpose of a wash is to really run down into the recesses, and it's going to naturally kind of provide a gradient as it dries into the recesses. The reason I say it's very beginner is because if you just do a really nice solid, not bold, but something that's got a lot of color to it, saturation to it, and give it a wash, you're probably going to be very happy with the results, and it's going to feel incredibly easy. But then I do say it kind of starts to lean into a little bit more intermediate, because you do kind of want to watch it. You kind of need to babysit a little bit. This is a lot smaller, but on something that had some bigger recesses, you wouldn't want it to. It will run and pool up there, and then you'll get some. It won't look like a color gradient. It'll look like there'll be like a tide mark of like where the water dried, kind of, or it'll be really, really, really too dark in recesses and that kind of stuff. But especially with yellow, it's a little bit lighter color. I have like an orangey yellow wash. It's a Citadel GW, I think is it Casandora yellow. I've really liked that one. I've used it on the Imperial Fist stuff a little bit.
That shook up enough.
Yeah, I bet you should be good. That when they don't have the ones that I haven't put agitators in, they just kind of But you'll see even from the blue, like the viscosity, like that kind of came out, and you kind of just have to get a feel for thinning each pigment is kind of the deal.
Do you need any more? Than
No,
that?
I think you should be good there. Okay. Now you'll also kind of really see the difference between this yellow, the way that it kind of thins out compared to the blue. It's just as different. Pigments are different.
Oh yeah.
And here a couple of coats is going to be really helpful. This is where having it primed in like a light gray is kind of nice, because if it was black, these paints are transparent to some degree. If you put the yellow right over a dark black primer, it's going to look a little bit goofy, and it's going to take a ton of coats to do it. Yeah, because the black will come through and it will muddy the yellow. Wants to be really bright, and the black underneath it's going to really darken it down.
Gotcha.
So having a little bit lighter, if you go like a mid or kind of lighter gray with the primer, it's good for just about anything, because this is going to have a little bit of light quality to it, so the yellow should kind of take to it really well. Oops. Leave that there. Opposite ends. Those ones go. Yeah.
When it comes to using the washes, you put those on last then?
You can. They do take a little longer to dry, because you put them on kind of thick and sloppy. But the cool thing is that's not a huge area. I think we'll throw the wash on when that yellow is dry, and then we can be working on the rest of the model while it's drying. And moon dust, Army Painter, moon dust. We were using demonic yellow. And I think get a little more kind of color saturation with that yellow, and then we'll do the raised edges. We'll hit a little bit of highlights with this.
Ooh,
And then we'll hit it with
highlight.
wash. Highlight.
Think I'm ready for it?
I think you're ready, yeah. I believe in you, my man. So this is where you're it's going to feel like you're off-roading a little bit. Because when you're blocking in big things where that dragon comes to an edge on the robe, you can kind of use that crease as okay, this is the line where I'm going to paint. When you're doing highlights, maybe the trickiest thing is you're putting them on. Like if you're highlighting a rounded surface, you're going to choose where on that edge that this highlight is going to start, and that kind of thing. You're kind of freehanding it a little bit, if you will. But especially since we're going to be coming back over it with a wash is going to dull any hard-looking edges. We're not going to overthink it. We're just kind of getting our feet wet. We're just going to jump in and do it. So the backbone, the lines of the wing where it's a little bit raised, the parts of the head where the top where light would be hitting it, anything that looks like a sharp edge or a little raised bump, we're not going to cover it in this lighter yellow, but we are going to just highlight those raised parts. Right. Especially leaving recesses or kind of wide areas. We want to be kind of in the middle. We don't want to overdo it, but we want to definitely bring out some bits that kind of should jump out to our eyes. So looking over it, I kind of called out some of them, but what are you thinking there?
Yeah, I would say kind of the ridge along his head for sure, and his background and his wing ridges there.
Yep.
I don't know. Not sure what else would
maybe the tail, just a little flick, along the top of that tail there. Maybe a little flick along the edges. And I'm going to show you a technique for some of those edges, because you think to yourself, boy, striking a little line down it's gonna be fucking hard,
that's
right?
Exactly what I was thinking.
I'm going to show you something that maybe has it's used for what's called edge highlighting sometimes, but you actually can use the edge of the brush instead of the tip of the brush to make your life a whole lot easier. Okay. So I've got this mixed up a little bit. Let me show you. And I'm going to go that smaller sized brush here. So I'm just going to I want maybe a little bit more of the thicker smudges. So I'm going to kind of load up the brush decently well here. I'm especially going to have it in, there we go, so it's kind of loaded up. And then I'm not going to paint like this. I'm going to take the side and just kind of come in until I catch it that way.
Oh, okay.
So you could take a little, you know, do it again, and then if we're going to get that part there, we're kind of coming at it at an angle, so that we just catch that and we don't have to worry about slipping. You're letting the edge of the brush just follow along that side there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You're only hitting the highest points.
Yeah, exactly. So try that out, see if it makes it a little less daunting.
All right. All right, so we're kind of getting a wide paint swath on there.
Yeah, yep. I think it's good to have it loaded up decently well, and you kind of, it's maybe not too bad to have it a little bit more thick than runny, just so it doesn't run off of that edge when you're painting it. But,
like, is that okay for coverage, you think?
I would maybe dip into the thicker part a little bit more. You don't want like a big glob on the end of it, but if you get into thick paint and then you kind of roll and get your tip back on the brush, then that might be kind of a good, yeah, start there.
All right. All right, let's try this other wing here. Yeah, we went a little.
It's okay. I wouldn't stress.
Thick on that one.
I wouldn't stress about it. Just keep moving forward. Just keep on learning. Get your learn on.
Oh, I'm learning a lot. Kind of got his head down to his tail and then his wings.
Mm-hmm.
What?
I think that's good. I think we're gonna leave it there.
All right.
A little bit of highlights and.
I'll stop ruining it.
First step, yeah. Stop ruining this video. No, you're good. You got some variation in there, and the shade, the wash, the shade is gonna really bring it out. So I think you're looking good. Now what we'll do, you can imagine if you did this, it's gonna be a whole lot easier to catch these big folds in the robe. So we're gonna leave a good chunk, maybe leave more than you think, because it's easier to creep in on the next coat. We're going to do a lighter coat here now, and it's going to be easier to creep towards the recesses than it is to go back and undo making it too bright, right?
Sure.
So start just out at the edge and kind of creep your way in a little bit. Underdo it in the beginning, underdo it like the whole way around, and then we can look at it and say, is that pretty good? And if you go, you know what, I want to take it a little bit more, then you can take it in a little bit more in the second coat a little bit. But we're just going to use straight up the blue and just kind of go for it.
Oh, okay.
You're going to end up, I would say, don't be afraid when you, especially if you're starting out and you're kind of tackling blending colors like this. If we looked at minis online, there's going to be some people who have some incredible looking blends that you cannot tell where their brush strokes were at all. We're not going to care about that. Don't care for a second about a line where you can see where I painted before and where I'm painting now. Blending, blurring that, just don't worry about it.
That's in the 202 course.
Yeah, it certainly could be. Just having some variation in color, especially once you're away, when you're up on it painting, like when you're up here looking at it, it's going to really slap you in the face. You're going to go, I've got that hard line right there. And you're not wrong. You could work at that and get better at it. But for the most part, even if you have a little bit of a hard line, but you've got that variation, again, we're kind of exploiting the brain's perception of colors and minis. When you look at it from here on the table, your brain is going to see a shadow and just blend it together. So don't stress about it.
So as long as no one gets too close,
As long
to
as
the
no one
minis,
gets
I think.
like everything, if as long as nobody gets too close to it, it's gonna be good.
Good to know. Good
But
to know.
I think I think it's better to just take a stab at it, jump into it, not worry about a hard line being there. These are going to be kind of close in shade too because we just mixed them just with a little bit of black, so it's not going to be that bad. But
it won't be too dramatic.
no, it shouldn't be. But yeah, just give that a shot. Kind of start in on it, and like I say, underdo it so that if you want to go a little further with it.
And we want this a little bit thicker so we won't put in any water in this. Or?
I would still thin it a little bit. You probably want kind of close to what you were before, but maybe a little less water than before, but definitely have a little bit to thin it out.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So for these, do we want to go like down the entire length of these of the folds?
Where they kind of meet up, you'll imagine at the top here it'll all come together, but as you go down each one, we're going to leave that little recess. This darker color.
Okay. Yep. But lengthwise, we're going from top to bottom.
You might have an easier time if you pull a little bit more paint off of the brush. Get down to like a nice thin tip, and then because it'll still look how it spreads on the the palette. Yeah. Yep.
All right. Yep. So we're not trying to go too heavy on this.
Nope. This is where you might want that handle thing, where you might want to hold it upside down and draw from the bottom of the robe. Do you feel like you want to try to do that? I don't know. See if you like one over the other. Sometimes just changing the orientation of the mini really helps.
It changes the perspective a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And you can get crazy with this. If you had 5 colors instead of 3 and you were blending a little bit at a time, it's going to be a lot sharper gradient. If we took the dragon and we started with an orange base and built up to the yellow, it would look like it has more depth to it, but again, how far do you want to take things? This is a great, I think, first stab at some of these techniques. It's reading as a pretty good blue robe right now, I think, so I'd be happy with that. Sweet. Good job, man.
Right.
Let's do this. Do you want to do... I have a lot of my minis based with just a black ground and a dusty, rocky kind of gray for the rubble kind of rocks there. Do you want to go like a brown kind of earth or black?
Yeah, brown would be fine.
Okay.
Might as well.
There's one that I do really like, this dark stone. It's a very chocolate, kind of deep, dark brown, close to a black. Okay, we're going to look at doing a wash on the dragon to get a contrast. And boy, this is going to be fun to get your reaction off of using a wash and kind of what you think about it. So we got a little bit on the palette, load up a brush, and we want to work it around a little bit. Since the dragon is on the edge of, we're not washing the whole mini, maybe be a little careful around the edges, wick stuff away. If it does go over, it's not going to be bad if it does spill over and you just wick it right away. It's going to dry, especially wick most of it away. You're not going to really be able to see too much of it.
And we're covering the whole dragon.
The whole dragon, just cover the whole thing. Get a good. It's not gloppy like paint is, but you want a thick bunch of it, and you want to kind of slop it on to a degree.
Gotcha.
And just slop it on and work it around. And if we need to, you can dry the brush. And just touching a dry brush to a pool of this shade or wash where you don't want it is going to wick a lot of it right away. So we'll do that. Just kind of get a little, you'll see it'll have a little bit of shading in the recesses. Give it a shot.
All right. What brush would you recommend for a wash?
I would use it. You could even use the thick one. This is a little bit of a junky brush, but you don't have to be precise with with the wash. So that brush, there's thicker bristle kind of to it, so it'll hold a little bit more.
Just slam it on there.
Yeah, and just work around. You don't have to, I would say, you don't have to go slow. Just get every which way. You'll kind of see immediately like what it's doing, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's pulling in all the little crevices and everything there.
Yep. This wash, also being a little bit orangey, I think is going to add like a kind of a warm color to this dragon and make it look a little fleshy. You know, instead of the yellow, it can be an odd to think of it as a flesh tone. Making it warmer like this is going to maybe trick your brain into making it feel like it's a little fleshy. But, I mean, there you are, right?
Yeah, just simple as that.
That's quick, isn't it?
That is quick. That is quick. It got a little bit maybe running down its tail there.
Yeah, yep. You wash it. You might even clean it out and then dry it and then wick it away, and you might be good. That's where the dragon just peed on his robe a little bit.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. We have some fiction going on too. Yeah,
there's
the narrative.
There's a lore-heavy mini that we got right here, but
Let's go with this barbarian.
yeah, that's a good. I use that frequently. That's a good middle of the road. Would you like some apple slices? If you do a flesh wash over all of it, it's going to darken a little bit on the beard.
All right. Yeah, if you
try it,
looks good.
I would try it and see if you don't mind it. Like if you kind of go, no, I can do better. We can go back in and do it. But I think you might be. It's gonna the power of the wash. The power of a wash compels you. The power of a wash compels you. Take your hobby holder, hold it out like a crucifix.
The wash fixes everything.
The wash.
All right. Yeah, let's give it a shot.
It rubs the wash on its skin. It rubs the wash on its skin.
Or else it gets the paintbrush again.
Or else it gets the brush again.
Love it. Oh, let's find a well to put him down.
Yeah, throw him in the trash. No. Okay, good. And flesh wash. I got a wash tends to really clean up edges too. If you kind of feel like you have a little wavy edge where the flesh meets the robe, you know, a wash will settle into that recess and kind of make a nice dark line. And so it tends to, I feel like, straighten out those areas that are a crease or a recess. I feel like it straightens them out with a nice, distinct little shaded line. So sometimes there's a little bit back and forth. Sometimes I wick too much away, and I kind of want to come back with a little bit more, you know. But just keep toying. The cool thing about there's a lot of working time, or at least a lot more working time with a wash than with the regular paint. So I'll show you a little kind of edge of it, and I'll let you finish the base.
No.
This is something called dry brushing. Dry brushing it's right up there with. Well, I'd say it's right up there with washes as far as like how quickly you can get a really good looking mini, but I think that dry brushing is even easier once you kind of know what the whole idea is. You need a dry paper towel because if we use this one that we've been kind of dampening, it's going to kind of ruin it. And this is hard on your brush. It'll ruin your brush too over time pretty easily. But we're going to get most of it off. And then we're going to just very lightly flick back and forth. We're going to go very quick. And what it's going to do is there's going to be a little trace bit of paint left on the bristles. And if we use something like this that has a lot of give to it, it's going to catch the high points and it's going to leave the low points. So it's going to just hit the top stuff really quick. I love the speed that dry brushing gives you a really cool result. And I mean, you just chunk it in there. It doesn't matter too much because you are literally going to just back and forth. And the more you kind of work it all into the bristles, it feels very wrong.
It looks like you wiped it all off right there.
Yes, and I mostly did. But if I come back and I go over here,
you
can kind of see where you get a little bit
in there.
Now this is erring on the side of like it's all kind of waved up. But once you get there where you kind of go, yeah, it's not coming off in glops or chunks, you come back, you just kind of do that. Just back and forth very quick.
Yeah, definitely.
Easy peasy. So, for the quicker you go, like the better the result you get. Yeah, there you go, straight back and forth.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Actually, I can still see it coming off. So.
Yeah. You might. Usually one load, I could probably easily do a couple of bases with one load of the paint. So
Gotcha.
to kind of show you next time, you can load up the brush.
Yeah, that does look good. Wow.
Instant.
Yeah,
right?
for real. Super good, actually.
The last thing you do is paint the rim of the base. There you go. Nice.
Sweet. And there he is.
Dude, that's a very completed mini. And
That's awesome.
Like, how good do you feel about that mini? Especially compared.
Oh,
how good do you feel about that mini, like compared to the other one, and also just in and of itself?
I could definitely see room for improvement, but
Sure.
just compared to my first one over there, this is miles better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially in terms of like highlighting and the depth of the colors and stuff, and doing that wash. Actually, like like in his face,
It's
like,
drying, and it's
I
drying.
can see it right now.
Every detail of the face, you haven't had to do a damn thing. Like you let it happen.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Liquid talent.
Liquid talent. Now, when you get better or you get a finer feel with the brush, you can go back in and highlight and pick out the nose, the ears, the cheekbones and stuff like that. That certainly you could do, but I always feel like especially my NPC minis for D&D and that kind of thing, putting on a base, a flesh-colored base, and putting a flesh-toned wash over it, I feel like I'm done. I'm not going to... What is worth your time? Trying to pick out an eyeball and pupils and highlighting the tip of a nose that's a quarter of a millimeter long, Is it really worth your time? For something that's like a centerpiece of, like, maybe you're playing like 40K or Kill Team and you have like your leader guy that you really want to look awesome, or like the Frostgrave, the Wizard. I think we should put more time into the Wizard and the Apprentice and let the mercenaries be, what they are. But for just getting something painted and done, I think it looks good.
Oh yeah.
Again, your brain kind of fills in like, hey, there's eyes there, there's features, there's the face, there's the nose and stuff. You don't have to have it all, painted like eyeball.
Yeah, I'm just blown away by that wash right now.
Looks good. Looks really good. Yeah.
Looks way better than that first coat I put on it.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. Great job, man. Great job. That looks great.